Welcome to Curious Coaching, the Sport Northern Ireland podcast for coaches who are driven to explore new ways, thirsty for new ideas, and passionately curious about how they can maximise the power of sport through great coaching. The podcast that seeks not to answer coaching questions, but to provoke them.
Hello and welcome to the Curious Coaching Podcast. With us today is Mark Tumilty and Arlene Boyles. Guys, you're very, very welcome. Thanks for coming on this afternoon.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to having a conversation with you today about your coaching practice and your coaching journey. And I suppose for the first question I want to throw out to you, I'll pitch this to Arlene. Arlene, we know you're the manager of the Irish women's hockey team. Can you tell us a little bit about your current role and also about your coaching journey that led you there?
My coaching journey, I kind of fell into it a little bit. After I stopped playing for Pegasus, there was a position in coaching that was available in the club. And as Mark would know, you kind of, when you're brought up into a club, you suddenly get asked, what are you doing next week? And you end up falling into something that you said you would never do. And that's giving up another 5 nights of your life after you've played for 25 years. So, so I kind of fell into the coaching aspect of it a little bit. And then in 2010, I was asked to go into Ireland A with an assistant guy, an assistant two guy. And from there, I went into 2012, I went into the senior setup as assistant. And then it kind of morphed, as things usually do in Hockey Ireland, it kind of morphed into taking on a little bit more role. I suppose we're not a nation of having an insurmountable amount of money. And I think you take on, bottle carrier and S&C and everything else. And I think then I fell into the whole manager's role. Just by simply being organised, I suppose, and I took it from there. But as far as the coaching journey went, it was something that it wasn't a conscious decision to get into, and it kind of was a progression and a learning curve really for me.
And describe, there probably is no 2 days the same, I would imagine, in your manager role. What sort of responsibilities does that position hold?
Okay, it's wide ranging. Logistically, I suppose it's everything from getting off the ground in Ireland and landing wherever you're landing and making sure everything's all right for the next 3 weeks or 2 weeks of a camp. It's as I say, my background is insurance. So 25 years in the insurance industry, you kind of have to know a little bit about being organised and being logistically correct at times. So I suppose it was. It's just something that, it's from, to be honest with you, it's from watering a pitch to getting on a bus to making sure that everything's right and that everything runs smoothly. I suppose it's, thankfully in all the times and the years that I've been doing it, that nobody has said really, well, that was a bit of a mistake, or we maybe made a bit of a mistake there. So I suppose I must have been doing something right, but it ranges. So, I'm involved on the pitch as well. And I also to obviously make sure that everything's all right.
So it sounds like quite a diverse role, lots of details involved.
It is a diverse role, it is, and I don't think, and Mark will probably lay testament to this as well, you just don't coach. That's not your only job. I think when you're in a setup like Ireland's setup, there's so many little nuances that you do that probably fall under the radar of someone else's job in maybe another country. But I think certainly here it's all things to all man at certain times.
Brilliant. Thanks, Arlene. And Mark, over to you. You've been a recent appointment as head coach of the men's international side. Tell us a little bit about your current role and your journey towards there.
So I'm currently the senior men's coach, probably the unluckiest senior men's coach ever. Had to deal with the disappointment of Canada, and since being appointed, I've had to deal with COVID-19. So I've yet to be on the pitch with the guys, but at the same time, I've spent plenty of time over the last 3 months working with them closely and I've had time for some good planning. So there's been some benefits in it, but I am looking forward to getting back on the pitch. In relation to a career journey to coaching, I'm definitely not a career coach. I can say that. I didn't set out to become an international coach or anything. I've, like Arling, spent 20 years in financial services up until last February, or until February passed, and all of a sudden then, yeah, become a full-time coach. Retired from playing around the age of 30. I'd always had a bit of an interest in coaching, if I'm honest. I'd done a bit of Ulster under-21s, then retired and done a bit of work with an academy that Garvey had set up. Also got married this year and had a first child in the way, so I also thought it'd be a good time to get involved again in a bit more coaching, get out of the house.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so it was the right thing to do, was definitely at that stage, was to get a job. So the Garvey job came up, so I'd coached at Garvey, I played at Garvey for a number of years, and then the first 11 job came up, so I took that, done it for 2 years. We had some success, probably not the success a club of that size was used to, and I then decided that it wasn't a role for me any longer. To be fair, at that stage, I probably had thought that was me finished with hockey. I had a bit of an interest in football. I thought maybe go and do some football badges, but an opportunity came up. Banbridge approached me to ask, would I be interested? And yeah, I thought, right, chance to go back home. And I spent then 9 years with them. Quite a successful period with them. Again, I probably feel I should have achieved more with them. But yeah, it gave me great exposure to the EHL and the IHL and stuff like that. So, and great exposure to dealing with international players. There'll be quite a few of those in our squad. And then I finished last season with them at the end of 2019 season to take a break from hockey. And I had taken a break until about September time. I got a phone call to say, "Are you busy?" And from there, yeah, I became busy. All of a sudden, I was taking the team to Canada for the Olympic qualifier, which unfortunately ended as it did. But yeah, so it's been a strange journey, as I say, but one I've thoroughly enjoyed.
Fantastic. Very interested to hear your thoughts on the current situation. You mentioned you're keeping in touch with the guys as best you can during this difficult time.
Yeah, so it's just using Zoom. It's using the technology we have, but it's trying to break it down a bit more to give them a bit more input into the programs. So we've looked at things around what the sessions look like going forward to get their buy into that. We've done some stuff with the leadership group as well, just to develop that, because I think sometimes we create a leadership group but we don't develop them. So we spent time with that. Spent time with all the support staff developing the S&C side of things and trying to improve my knowledge on it, because it's definitely an area that I think I need to develop coming into a full-time role. So yeah.
Fantastic.
Okay, so I suppose moving on from that, there's some things we'll definitely want to pick up on as we go through, and there that you've both mentioned as we go. But we'll sort of come back to those in a stage, because we generally start then around. Obviously, the name of the podcast suggests that we're interested in what people are curious about. Really, we're getting into now. I was start with Mark this time. In terms, you've actually mentioned just now about the S&C side of things, but I'm sure there are other things coming into that role. Is there anything you're particularly curious to learn about right now as a coach?
It's that side of the whole sports science, Simon. From coming from a club background where the clubs in Ireland, are honest, we're not at that level. We're not like the Dutch clubs or probably the Belgian clubs, and we have exposure to that. So I wouldn't have had a massive amount of exposure to it either. I would have had some small stuff dealing through some of the courses Sport Northern Ireland run and things like that. But I think it's just trying to get a greater understanding of that. At the same time, I would caveat that by saying I need to get an understanding of it, but I don't need to know all of the detail, because I feel as if I have to trust our own S&C staff. I just want enough detail that I can use it to have conversations with players, to have conversations around what our training schedule looks like, and just how do we use that to make the players and our own team performance better. And that's around nutrition, sports psych, physio, all of it, physio, injury management, lots of those things. It's just, that's definitely an area that I need to make progress in.
And how have you found, Mark, those conversations with those sports science practitioners to date? Have you felt that that's been a challenge for you, or it's actually worked okay so far?
It is challenging, Simon, because I've listened to some of the podcasts or webinars, and sometimes it's at a level, listen, that is, it's too scientific. There's detail in it that is just way over my head. I have found some of the stuff where it's more people who are involved in teams who relate it back in layman's terms. It's a bit easier to understand. but there's common themes come through, I think, and a lot of it in that, listen, it has to relate back to performance. And one person summed it up, I think, best to me. That side, sports science side, is about making the team score more goals or concede less goals on a Saturday. And I think that adopting that mindset's probably important. So, yeah, listen, some of the details, some of the testing they do, some of the knowledge they have, and is crazy. And but I just want to know, basically, how do we make the team better? What testing do we really need to do? What results do I really need to see? And so, yeah, so it's just trying to keep it as simple as for me, but yet having the knowledge.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, it was good to hear the sort of critical eye to some of that stuff as well. So, Arlene, what about you? Is there anything that's going on for you at the minute in terms of your curiosity?
I mean, Mark's hit the nail on the head. I think it's it's something that certainly hasn't been in certainly in my experience and my era. There was very little information that was given to you. You were just told, "Here's your program, go and do it." And it's come on so much in the last even 2, 3, 4 years. And also to the knowledge of the players, what they want to know. They want to know, how do I get that last 5%, that Mark wants or Sean wants at the end of a match, when it's, you still have to put the ball in the back of net. And I think that's, I think that the knowledge that Mark has touched on there, that's within both camps, is phenomenal. And I think we would be foolish as coaching staff not to want to get to know it. What we've started to do over this last couple of years, and it started under our previous coach Graham, was that we basically have drills that they're really simply they're a traffic light type thing, red, amber, green, and depending on what you're wanting on a certain day is what that drill will give. And it's little things like that of building up a book of knowledge of what drills are accountable to what output. And I think that things like that, we're learning every day. Our S&C guy, David Lucini, has recently obviously come on from Sinai, and Darren Kenna has done a phenomenal job over the years. And it's things like that you just need. It's as Mark said, you don't want to know everything, because you don't need to know everything, but it's the little bits that you can add together to see how you can possibly make something better. And the other side of it, to be honest with you, Simon, that fascinates me is the psychology side of it. Is the person. It's all really simple. For me, you get the person, you get the player, and I think that's something that I certainly found coming up in the club that I grew up in. And I would say Mark would be similar in the clubs that he chose as well to play and coach, is that there's a belief system underneath it, and that doesn't come overnight. That there's years and years of information goes into a little bit of brainwashing, no doubt. But it's, for me, it's the psychology, it's the person, and that's something that I've always been interested in, and will continue to be so.
Have you seen, Arlene, in terms of that latter part around the psychology and the sort of outlook of players and stuff? Because coming across, and obviously not spent a lot of time with the squad, but coming across on TV and things, the Irish women's team is quite unique how they come across through the media in terms of the joy, particularly thinking back to the World Cup, and obviously it was an amazing journey in itself. But the joy that sort of came through the team, is that something that's been developed over time, or what sits behind that?
Yeah, that was a conscious decision. It's when we failed for Rio, there was, and I've touched on it recently. There was. It's really hard to explain, and Mark absolutely 100% knows where I'm coming from. The sheer devastation that you can get. It's very difficult to see light at the end of it. Bearing in mind, it's supposedly meant to be a hobby. It's supposedly what you do when you go away from work. And it becomes all consuming. And so when we failed for Rio, 14 days later, we had to get on a plane and go and play in Prague in a European B division, an absolute muck of a tournament. And that was really difficult, because there were players that just simply couldn't get on a plane and go and play hockey again. And then we rummaged together 18 hockey players, and thankfully for such a poor tournament, I mean, we won it. That was brilliant. We got into A division, But I think, you know, that's where, again, we sat down and went, right, we need to build these people back up. We need to build ourselves back up, because, I mean, like, I remember nearly every day having conversations in a daze about how we're meant to go and play France, how we're meant to go and play the Czech Republic. And just, you had, you know, women still in the room, you know, crying that they weren't going to Rio. But I think that's when we made the conscious decision of really putting effort into knowing the person. And it's such a cliched thing, Simon, you know, but I would be a great believer, and I even came through, you know, the insurance company I work for, Eagle Star in Zurich, was that they put a lot of emphasis in the person. And it was, for me, it's all about knowing your audience. And I think if you can get them to believe in you, you'll believe in them. And it didn't happen overnight. It really didn't. It accumulated absolutely 100% in London in 2018. But the girls wanted, we asked them a classic question that I'm sure many of the coaches asked: what do you want this to look like? Because this is your time. This is not our time, you know. And I've said it before, like, I failed 3 times to get to the Olympics. I played in a World Cup, but I failed 3 times to get to the dream. And, you know, so it wasn't my dream as such, you know, it was, you know, like, what do you want this to look at? And they all, without even putting a sticky on the wall, just went, we want to enjoy it. Now, that could be failing in the first game and feeling miserably and getting drunk after a week, or it could be a journey. And we decided to do the journey bit, and we talked constantly about the journey. Very cliched, absolutely. But I think when you get 28 women on board for that, you can pretty much, and that's what we did. We didn't say it was an 18 or a 16 or a coaching staff of 4. We said it was a 30. And all 30 people got us to that podium. But for me, it's not something, Simon, that's done overnight. There's a lot of time and effort and blood, sweat and tears goes into trying to get somebody to believe that your way is the right way. And that's what the girls did. And you saw that in the raw emotion that I suppose they show when they go on. Sometimes the BBC stuck maybe a microphone in the wrong place and heard the odd bad word from McFerrin or Upton or something, because these girls, they're not media trained. We don't, you know, and I think that's why maybe people fell in love with us. We were just raw and emotional. But there was a lot of effort, a lot of blood in the wall, there's no doubt. A lot of very, very tough conversations went on in the weeks leading up to the World Cup. But they worked, and they continue to work. They should continue to work.
No, it's been a phenomenal journey to watch from the outside, definitely, and that's been a really fascinating insight into the inside of it to an extent. I think you both touched on it as you introduced yourselves, nearly around the roller coaster of Irish hockey, probably over the last 12 years or so, in terms of maybe a couple of Olympic misses on one side and one at least one on the other, and a qualification each, a European medal for the guys and a world medal for the girls. So it's definitely been a bit of a roller coaster. So in terms of, I suppose, the people that are involved in that, and I know, Mark, you're more recently involved in it, but you've managed to get part of the roller coaster even in that short window. Maybe not part of it you're after, but did you feel, what have you learned from that experience? And can you see the people and the staff around, can you identify nearly with some of the journey that Arlene's, or a piece of the journey that Arlene's describing from the girls in terms of building people up again?
Yeah, because like, unfortunately for some of our lads that were also involved in the disappointment of 2012, missing out with seconds to go, and we're lucky enough to get to Rio, and then we then had the Canada. So it's difficult in that some of the guys I haven't seen since then, but we've had conversations and we've interacted with them, and it's very hard, I think, to deal with that on a Zoom call. That has been a challenge. It was definitely something where we want to move forward, and we do need to move on. We'll definitely have to spend some time together face to face when we get to our first camp, have a chat about it. We may even have to watch the game again just to get it out of the system. We've got to get it out of the system and move on. I still think about it daily. I go walking the dog and across my mind. I see all the Olympic stuff and across my mind. But it's sport, and we have to move on. We have to go through a phase with the group here, I think, which is a development phase on the men's side, which I look forward to going through with a group of, there'll be some new players in the squad who are very young. So at the same time, we can't label them with that, and we can't spend our time feeling sorry for ourselves. We need to move forward because there was a disappointment of the Olympic qualifier, but we didn't have a great European scene that's been relegated. So we probably haven't been as successful as we'd have wanted to have been over the last couple of years. So there's a lot of things to combine there to bring together and to move forward with. But yeah, I definitely think the support staff, it was tough for them as well because they've done an excellent job. Tough for even someone like Jason Lee, 5-time Olympian, but anytime I spoke to Jason afterwards, he still goes on about he feels the disappointment of it. So it's one of those things I'll never forget, those few days, and everything looked to be going well. Everything looked as if we qualified, and then the umpire's decision. Got to deal with that. But I just need to get back on a pitch and try and get. I haven't been in the pitch since then, which is disappointing too. So getting back in the pitch will hopefully help get that out of my system. But I have to get on with it.
I know from speaking to you before, Mark, around you'd done some work down the pathway a little bit since, with some of the guys and really changing how things happen in terms of some of the provincial work and things that's going on there. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm keen that we grow our players players capable of playing international hockey. I was once told there's a difference between being picked to play for Ireland or your country and being able to play. I'm very keen to focus on that, being capable of playing, and we've work to do around basics and stuff like that. So I'm very keen to go back, probably something like Paul Remington done a lot of, which was to embed regional sessions and work across the provinces to try and develop a greater number of players to create more competition within the group. We need a more competitive group to get our training sessions up, to get the level of the IHL up, which in turn will help the international team, which hopefully then in turn may make it more exciting and better for players to be based at home to play in local competition. So the whole thing has a knock-on effect. But if we don't get it right at regional and grow those number of players that are capable of playing international hockey, then it's very hard to do the other things. So there's talent about, there definitely is talent about, but I think we have work to do around the basics in the game. Sometimes we bring players through who don't have the basics that I think are needed for international hockey. And if you watch the very top teams, the focus on basics. Listen to Alison and Anne, the Dutch ladies coach, world champions. What do you do in a 90-minute session? Some of you have probably seen this. We do 30 minutes of basics. And when she was asked then, does that involve 3D skills? Her answer back was no. It's passing and receiving the ball. And I'm a firm believer in that we need to be better in that area. And we probably have not spent the time right through our age groups to have technically good enough players. And you can watch it at small things, a ball passed to the wrong foot to a centre back when you think you have a bit of downtime at the back four. All of a sudden, international hockey now, there's a trigger and a forward's all over you. And so it's making sure that 10 times we don't make that pass. 10 out of 10 is on your right foot. I went to a presentation with Jamie Dwyer and Mark Knowles, two of the best players in the world, and they were asked why did Australia not win the Olympic gold medal. Germany beat them in the final, and they basically said we misplaced 3 passes that the Germans didn't. And that's the small detail at international level that we've got to definitely through regional sessions, even our 16s, 18s, 21s. We've got to challenge our basics in those and the principles that we're trying to play to try and get us to be more consistently better at international level. And it's that consistency to enable us to stay at a level, to stay at our world rankings and not hang on.
Arlene, I just saw you nodding a bit there as we were going, so I wanted to just give you a minute, maybe if there's anything around that you wanted to comment on before I hand back across to Michael.
Mark and I have the exact same views on Irish hockey. Maybe it's an age thing. Yeah, I mean, it's something that, it's something that I think has left the game at underage. It's become sexy to do things that are over and above, like without going into details of hockey, but like a reverse stick shot or whatever, when you're 12 or 13 or 14 years of age, it's all very great and it's lovely and it may well look aesthetically pleasing, but as Mark has alluded to, if you can't pass a ball 6 yards, well, there's not much point you know, continuing yourself to try and learn a skill that is over and above that. I'm a firm believer in basics. I was brought up by a guy that was quite a hard-nosed coach, to say the least, and that's all he did. I mean, to say that it was mind-numbing is an understatement, but I tell you, I learned how to hit a flat hockey ball. I learned how to hit an accurate hockey ball. I learned how to tackle, and I suppose the fundamentals of playing hockey are those are some of them. I do think we have a fantastic opportunity now, perversely, because of the world that we're in at the minute, and how we get back on the pitch with no contact and distancing, is that we, thankfully, both the boys and the girls have this opportunity now to spend a lot of time on drills that may well, I think if you got someone on a call from either the boys setup or the girls setup, they'd probably say it's pretty boring just to hit a hockey ball back and forward for 40 minutes. But it's something that we've watched other nations now, Simon, do it for fun. And when we went to play the Dutch in the final, we've watched that final over and over and over again, and purely from a learning tool. Not from, oh my goodness, we're in a final, look at the the crowd, isn't it lovely? And it's actually purely from, right, what did they do that we didn't? And it's the fundamentals, it's the passing, it's the receiving, it's the accuracy. And again, as Mark has touched on Alison and Anne, I played against Alison pretty much all of my career. And I tell you now, I saw her back. I never saw the front of her. The girl, she, as an ex-defender, you're always, at whatever sport, whether it's football or hockey or whatever, you're waiting for the forward to make a mistake. That girl never made a mistake. And she's brought that into the way that she coaches. And she's a firm believer in, if you've got the ball too long, somebody can take it off you. And she coaches her side like that. And it's very, very evident that, as Mark said, certainly the men, but the women as well, spend a hideous amount of time on basics.
Arlene, just sticking with you, one of the themes on this podcast is very much around coach learning and development. I'm really interested to know what's been the most significant learning experience that you've had so far in your coaching career.
I think I've touched on it a little bit. Is in that, so many coaches are, they remember winning leagues or winning cups or whatever. Maybe it's a Northern Irish in us, I don't know, but I kind of go to the failure to see what you can learn from the failure. That is definitely an Ulster thing, but I've touched on it with Rio, in that I would say, to be honest with you, that would probably, outside of the World Cup, obviously, and how well we did there, and obviously then got on to qualify for Tokyo. But I think you can learn a lot about yourself and learn a lot about the person when it doesn't go well. I'm a great believer in seeing who's in the trench and helping you out rather than standing in your head. And I think after that, we found out who was willing to go to the dark place in order to come back out again. And I think that was the biggest learning point for me as a coach, that, rebuilding and building all over again is like you're trailing things from so many different directions. You're relying on people to be honest and open and all the cliches that you can think of, but it's a value system that I would hold dear. And I think that from a coaching point of view, you can learn so much from that. And I think that's definitely one of my biggest is, it's just not a journey for you, it's a journey for everybody. And it's just whether you want to bring them on board and whether they can, and also to listening to the people that can't and possibly taking something away. And, in my club career of coaching, we won the All-Ireland League with a team that just shouldn't have been, with the greatest respect to any Pegasus person listening to this, we shouldn't have been anywhere near it. And, and it was, again, a belief system that, we spent a lot of time talking to each other, and me certainly learning about the person. And I think that it's certainly the biggest curve that I can see in my coaching career is the little, the person at 40 years of age or 38 years of age that knew everything to the age I am now. I'm not going to tell you, but the age I am now, that you can see that as the journey goes on, it's just taking little bits and also to some very uncomfortable bits, and trying to shape yourself.
Fantastic. It's lovely to get that insight. You mentioned values there, and the value system that you bring to your coaching, and you bring to the squads that you work with. How long did it take you to develop that? Is that something that's evolved over time?
Look, I think it has. I mean, it's something that was in the club team that I played for. It was very much an environment where you felt safe, and I suppose that then shaped you. I think your value system, you'll get it from, I'm sure there'll be a psychologist somewhere with a word that it's meant to be, but it's you'll get it from your parents, you'll get it from the people that you're interested in, you get it from the people that you put around you at an early age, and and I suppose at that stage, you do develop it and see how powerful it can be, probably, because you're not going to go through your coaching career and you're going to be brilliant, and you're not going to go through your coaching career and win everything that you possibly can put your hand on. And it's certainly, to be honest with you, from an Irish point of view, it is a hobby. It's a love affair. It's not, Mark isn't sitting getting 7-figure sum there, you know what I mean? But maybe he is. Geez, I don't know. But it's you do it for the love of the sport, and you do it, and it again, it's it's a little bit cliched, but it's not going to pay your rent, so you have to get your enjoyment out of it as well. And I think if you invest in it, it'll, as I said at the top of the podcast, that you invest in it, they'll invest in you. And I think that's something that I've always held dear, as you say, the value system.
Okay. And Mark, same question to you about your learning experiences. What's been really strong in the learning and development side of things for you?
There's probably been a few things that have stood out for me. One is spending time with other coaches. And I've probably been lucky enough, and I hope I get this guy's name right, a guy, Soares Martins, who's the Indian ladies coach.
Yeah.
Came across and took a 2-day workshop through Ulster Hockey. And it was probably I took 2 days off work, and it was probably 2 of the best days I've ever spent within a coaching environment, because we just learned so much. And a lot of the stuff I use now, and he was a guy who'd been assistant with the Spanish men, I think, under Maris Hendricks, to Olympic silver medal. I think he's done the Dutch ladies, I think, as well. He's been assistant in the men's side. He's now with the Indian ladies. Just really simple things, and he really helped with. And then the opportunity, obviously, to spend time with Jason Lee there over this during September, October, 5-time Olympian, and just to room with Jason and have that opportunity for even the 2 odd weeks we were in Canada to listen to Jason. So I think for any coach coming through is to spend time with those. It doesn't always have to be coach at that level. You can learn something from somebody coaching kids, just in something they do, or how it could be something as daft as where they set a cone. And so I definitely, that would be one huge learning. One of the other things I really benefited from is more through default than anything. I put in place like a mentor when I was at Banbridge as a coach in my last few years, and it was a guy who was on the coaching staff, but he was an older guy with more experience. And to be fair, I used him as a guy to sound things off, to ask for feedback on how I dealt with different situations, and that definitely was very beneficial. Now, the key to that was he was in the same wavelength as me. We wanted to play this game in the same way, and so yeah, I definitely think that was one of the key learnings. And there's a few other things around. I've regularly rotated my assistants, which has challenged me and reinvigorated things. So through the years of coaching at Ban and Garvey, I think I had about 5 different assistants through various times. So it brought a freshness to the group. It challenged me again, and it also created fresh ideas in the group as well. And so that was good. And probably one of my other learnings is trust the staff. When I first started out coaching, I wanted to take the sessions, I wanted to plan the trips, I wanted to have complete control, and I certainly changed that over time. Now, probably near the end of when I was coaching at club level, I was taking a lot less of the sessions, probably up until the last, what we call the business end of the season. Once we got a few months to go, I probably would have come in and taken over more. I would have had more impact on a Tuesday and Thursday night. But up until that, it would have been more communicating on a Monday what the guys had to do during the week and letting them get on with it. And I just observed, and it's funny, even listening to a lot of podcasts and webinars over this last number of weeks, that seems to be a common theme. It's about observation and coaching on the run type thing. So yeah, definitely take your time, move with the times. And it's funny, you asked the question earlier, what are you curious about? I'm actually curious about, we can share a lot of information in the last 3 months. It'll be interesting to see actually who's successful in implementing some of their new learnings, and also a challenge to not reinvent yourself and go away from your principles totally. And I think that'll be interesting because it is easy to take on board all these things, think, yeah, I'm going to do all those, I'm going to change the world tomorrow, and we're not. I think it's taking those few small ideas. And there's been some great ideas recently. Like I found some stuff really around culture, leadership really beneficial and are important for where we are as an Irish team.
Fantastic. And a bit of a different question for you. You both mentioned actually you come from different career backgrounds in insurance and finance. Has there been anything from those environments or those cultures that you have been able to bring to your sporting career?
It's interesting because through the RBS group, Michael, we run a program called Determine the Lead, which probably enjoyed some of it, other bits of it I didn't enjoy, but there was a sports coaching side of it as well, which came from an American and Australian background. And funny, it was interesting because Arlene's touched on it as well, that we probably in Northern Ireland have a bit of a negative. So it's more what went wrong. So we learned with it, I learned within that program to start to think, what are the things that you've done well? And it probably created much better one-to-ones. So I think now, I find now when I'm speaking with players, stuff like that, it's easier to have those conversations. So it's a more focus on what's going well, what's the one area we could probably fix, and then let's work together to see how we can fix that. So that was definitely good. There was another tool which I think is very useful within a coaching setup is, and I've used it a wee bit, is the success triangle, which was in that program, which is basically looking, are you capable? Are you motivated? So it's looking at things like that. So is the player capable? Do they understand what's expected of them? And are they motivated to do it? And it's trying to look at those with players. So I've used that as well. So there's definitely been a lot of crossovers. Again, probably another thing that sticks out from that is the environment. I've always been within sport or work an environment that people want to come to, that they enjoy, and that you're developing them both as in work you're developing them as a person and a banker. Within hockey, you're developing as a person and a player. So yeah, so it's just definitely there's been some good things that I've been able to cross over.
Fantastic. And yourself, Arlene, you mentioned earlier on in the podcast about the details that you had brought with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to what Mark is saying. I mean, my company probably used the same people that Mark did. And I mean, again, Zurich were very good at investing, as I said before, in the person. And my primary role near the end of me being in Zurich was I was a negotiator. I negotiated renewals, and with that there's so many tools that you have to have in your bag to sit facing someone and ask them for a hideous amount of money and ask them to part with it. But you know, they were very good at probably making you comfortable at being uncomfortable, which I suppose in an environment for sport happens probably every day. You know, every sport in the world likes to train and practice what they're really good at. What they don't want to do is practice what they're not very good at and try to make them better. I think, you know, Zurich again had an amazing knack of every course that you went on, they videoed you and you watched it again and you watched yourself back, which was excruciating. And again, it might be a Northern Irish thing, but I always found that the English loved it an awful lot more than we did. And, you know, and I think that you learned a lot about yourself in an environment like that, where you were put in with several psychologists and just given various tasks to see how you'd handle them. I'm a firm believer in empty vessels make a lot of noise. And what I mean by that is that just because you sit quietly and and take something on board and maybe not reply, it doesn't mean that you're not interested. And I always kind of gravitate towards people like that, because I find them always a very interesting person. And I think that, I suppose, like as Mark has said, the success triangle, the motivated person, you know, there's so many crossovers in sport and business. And lucky enough that I went on the courses. Mark is lucky enough as well to go on the courses. And I think we've been very fortunate to bring stuff like that across. But yeah, excruciating times, I suppose, as well. But it's, if you get the opportunity, you know, to do like 360 feedback from people and what have you, you'd be foolish not to take the opportunity for it, because I think it you know, it grounds you. And as Mark has touched on, you just listening to people and taking notes, and you know, it's definitely a way for coaching going forward.
So getting towards the back end of this now, and it sort of actually builds on what we're talking, or you've just mentioned, Arlene, 360. And one of the things we want to finish with is talking about, we call it about coach superpowers or super strengths within coaching. And I know that's always a hard thing for a coach who has a lot of humility to come forward and say, here's the one thing that I think actually stands out about my coaching. Here's the one thing I think I'm probably best at within my coaching. But Mark, have you anything in your head, if we were to say, what's the thing within coaching that is your strongest element?
Probably something I developed. If you ask people maybe when I first started around man management and calmness and stuff like that, I would have said definitely not. Some of the things I'd done at Garvey in my 2 years, and team talks and shouting and roaring and kick the odd bin, I think. But I think going forward, being serious about it, it's probably about creating an environment. I definitely have worked really, really hard on that. I think that's something that I very seldom have I had players that haven't enjoyed being at sessions, haven't enjoyed being involved with the group. They've all enjoyed being with the group. They've all enjoyed being in sessions. We've had tough times. We've had really tough conversations at times we had, but I definitely think I've created environments where players both developed on and off the pitch. And I think that's probably the biggest compliment that I can take from when I left BAM. Guys said that you were more than just a coach. And that's something that as I say, stands out to me, in that there are we spoke about careers at times, their own well-being, even giving lads at times time away from hockey because it was the right thing to do at that stage. So I definitely think that, and that was helped by the fact that I trusted my assistants to get on with the role they were asked to do. I trusted staff, I developed staff as well. And so yeah, I think that's been my biggest one, is creating an environment and people doing the things I wanted them to do, and they've done it for themselves, the team and me as well. So that's probably the thing that stands out to me. Thanks.
So, as you know, we had spoken to players as well, and a lot of parallels between, for each of you, we've spoken to a player, and definite parallels coming through. So for you, Mark, we spoke to a player who you'd coached at club and international level latterly, and Eugene McGee. So 295 caps worth of opinion there. So Eugene, if I would paraphrase a little bit, he said, in terms of your strengths, getting the best out of people by understanding people, seeing people beyond just hockey players. He referenced things like allowing people to take a step back when they needed a step back. Although the other term that he used was brutal honesty, but he talked about that in the way that it builds trust amongst the team. People trust you because they know you're saying what you think. How do you reflect on that? There's certainly parallels there.
Yeah, the brutal honesty piece, it's probably a tough one at times, and it's definitely something I feel I developed over time as well. But I think as well, it helps to get things out there. The one thing I don't like is things festering. So sometimes it's better to be brutally honest, get it out there, and let's deal with it. The last thing I want is guys getting in a car after a session, or guys behind your back now with social media, with mobile phones. Oh, that session was this, or this session was that, or I'm not getting on with this player. Let's deal with it. Also, I probably at BAM set certain standards in relation to what I expected from players and what I wanted us to achieve. And I say we probably didn't achieve what we should have, but we were successful, but probably not as successful as I really would have liked us to be. But I think it was that brutal honesty with them that drove them on, that encouraged them. We produced 9 or 10 international players during that period. So I think you have to be honest. Guys that want to achieve at the highest level want you to be honest with them. And it lets them see where you want them to be. And it was one coach once said to me, once a coach stops being brutally honest with you and being hard on you, you might as well forget about it because he no longer has any interest in you. And that always stood by me from coaching and playing. When I knew a coach no longer was speaking to me or asking for my input or giving me a hard time in sessions, I sort of thought, right, okay. So, so I think, probably Eugene probably sums me up well. I was lucky to coach a player like Eugene, to be honest. A great guy to have about the group. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And Arlene, for you, anything that you think, if you sort of were setting your stall out in terms of you and your role, a strength?
Well, I mean, I'm gonna replicate Mark, to be honest with you. It's man management. I've always been very conscious of putting people around me that challenge me and just aren't yes people. And that's in life as well. It's just not hockey. And trust me, I have put people around me that challenge me. But I think, I mean, I'm a great believer, and I've said it to you now, and I'm repeating myself a couple of times, but I'm a great believer in the person. And Mark has touched on it as well about, you know, when you get to a certain level and whatever club environment you're in, whether you're playing in the fifths or playing in the firsts, you know, you've actually come out of your house to do something, to go and enjoy yourself, and you have to be aware of that level of interest that you have on the park at that time. And I think if you can, as Mark has said, if you can be honest with people, not like a sledgehammer to the head at times, but to know the person that you're standing in front of, that takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. And I think the biggest thing for me is the person. And I suppose what I can bring to the role is the man management side of it, and the interest, you know, and you know, the trust that you can have, because sometimes people are going to arrive at a session and they're just not going to want to be there, and it's trying to get them through that. The fact that they've came, for starters, is possibly a little bit about you, but also to that they don't want to let you down, or you don't, you know, and that then flips across as well. And you know, it's something that I learned very quickly when the EHL became apparent, was that because I played in a successful club and coached in a successful club, you could get lazy as a coach. And, you know, you could turn up on a Monday night or a Wednesday night, or a Saturday afternoon, and you kind of could go through the process and go, right, okay, and you won the match, you've had a good session. And then it became a little bit different when it became an All-Ireland league. And suddenly you were pitted against people that were maybe ex-international coaches or assistant coaches, or you knew that they were of a caliber, and you had to put out a lot of more effort into your sessions. And I think that was the biggest thing for me as well from the man management side, was that you were then suddenly switching to getting people to work harder, to be more motivated, to maybe do things that you didn't want them to do. And then suddenly they're thinking, well, hang on a minute here, this is not why I come out on Monday and Wednesday night. So that part of me changed in that, right, okay, I need to get to know these people. I need to see what makes them tick. And then when it does get difficult, that, you know, they can look at me and go, right, okay, she knows what she's doing. And that's the trust issue. And I think that's what I can bring, you know, and I have brought, I think, over the last while that I've been coaching, and certainly from the management point of view, is that, you know, you can, you know, the investment is there, I think, from both sides. You're on a very good journey.
No, thank you. And I think certainly the people-centered bit certainly comes across from both of you when you talk. We spoke to Shirley McKay about your coaching, so we've upped it by 5 caps here to go to our maybe 10 caps to go to 305 here, but I don't think we've ever had opinion from 600 combined caps from 2 players. But so Shirley, I'll quote directly from Shirley. She said, I would say her super strength, Arlene's super strength, is her motivational skills. She's such a leader in that regard, captures a room with her words and actions, and really spurs players on in a team environment. You would go to war with her. To which I replied, I wouldn't go to war against her. But
I'm getting a very hard. Don't listen to this. Don't listen to this.
Do you see yourself in any of your behaviours around the team, in Shirley's words?
Yeah, I mean, as I alluded to it a little bit, I think you get shaped by the coaches that you have in an environment. And I did have a coach for 5 years, where I can safely say that none of my views on coaching was taken from him, but the honesty aspect of it, and I suppose the motivational aspect, yeah. I mean, I was fortunate enough then to be coached by a Dutch lady who brought in an arrogance, I think, to the team that we played in, or I played in, and that then, along with 5 years of the opposite, kind of molded this this view that I had on how you should lead a team or lead a changing room or whatever. And I was fortunate enough to captain Pegasus, and I was fortunate enough in my latter part of the career to have a fantastic captain in Rachel Kohler from Cork, and we worked very well together in that she was the good cop and I was kind of the bad cop. So you know, if a bit like what Eugene said about Mark, you know, there is an honesty that you can bring. You just need to be very careful that you know when to bring it, and I think that's maybe where Shirley is coming from. That I tried over the years, certainly in Pegasus, and I've tried over the years, certainly in the Irish team, that if you touch one, you touch all, and that's a really simple analogy for me that, you know, that I like to instill in the teams that I'm with, in that, you know, I've said it to you before about, you know, I'd like to know the people that are in the trench and helping me out instead of standing ahead. And if I see that, you know, I'd run through walls. And I think you can see, I think maybe that's what Shirley's alluding to, that yeah, you can kind of count on me, Simon. I think if something happened, I'm given a terrible picture of women's hockey at this precise moment in time. That is an absolute bloodbath when you play anybody. But I think you get that family environment, and it's not to be belittled in any shape or form. And it's something that the men will be going through, certainly in the, you know, they have been since the Canada series, and they'll go through it certainly in the next year as well. We've came through that, and it was something that I'm very proud of, that I was part of a team of people that put an awful lot of effort into doing stuff like that. But from a motivational point of view, yeah, it's very easy when you're all wearing the same shirt and you're all going the one direction, you know. So you come off with a few cliches and a few comments and get a bit of raw meat thrown into the room, you know what I mean, Simon, and that's it. But yeah, I suppose you're shaped as a person by who you put around you, as I said before, and I was certainly shaped by people with very, very big personalities.
Brilliant. Thank you.
And Mark knows exactly who I'm talking about, so he's sitting giggling himself to himself there.
I don't.
Needless to say. Sorry.
As well. So
sorry, Mark. Go ahead.
I was ship ban as well.
That's maybe why Mark and I are quite similar in our views of sport at the minute. But yeah, I mean, having said that, that's no bad thing.
Brilliant. Guys, that's been absolutely fascinating. Really fascinating time, and it's just flown by. To finish, if it was to come to you and ask you, have you one sentence that you could offer for the wider coaching community out there, in terms of one thing you maybe like people to have a think about? Mark's already scrambling here because he's under pressure because I'm coming to him first.
Yes.
I've got Simon, it's an interesting one. I've talked a bit about it recently when I've been talking to some underage coaches. I think we need to be very careful with our language that we use. And even something that's come into the game is how we describe players. It's interesting, and I hear the term blocker used for a centre midfielder, which I think is one of the most negative terms ever. To tell any player he's a blocker just does not sit well with me. And he's a centre midfielder who you're looking to play through to get you going forward, but describe him as a block, a piece of wood in a pitch. Sorry to say, how does somebody turn up to train on a Monday, Wednesday, give up their weekends for international hockey to be described as a blocker? And I do just think sometimes the language we use to describe players just limits them. So that's definitely something that I think from a coaching point of view, people should think about. how they position the language to encourage players to play and be confident on the ball.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you, Arlene.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. But I think if you fall into the trap that you think you know it all, you're in trouble. You know, and like we've talked about various people on this podcast, you know, about how you listen to them and learn from them and what have you. That has to be a continuous journey. It has to be until the day you stop. And even then, when you do stop, you know, always listen to the people around you. You know, as I've said, you know, like you're talking about Shirley McKay there. You know, one of the most talented, quiet, underestimated person in a changing room you'll ever meet. But my goodness, when she speaks, you could hear a pin drop. You know, and I think, you know, it's things like that. Don't think that you can't learn off a player. Don't think you can't learn off, as Mark has said, an under-14 coach or whatever. I live in Dundonald here, and I'm formerly from East Belfast, and I went down and watched a guy that I would have grew up with, and he coaches football in Bloomfield. And I went down and watched him just last week to see what they were doing, because the football was opening up again. And he had little cones and everything set out and what have you. And I ended up chatting to him, and I got more in 20 minutes than I have in a year and a half, you know, with some of the conversations that he came off with. You're thinking, God, right, okay, I never thought of that. Flip, right, okay, I never thought of that. And at the end of the day, it's a team sport. So whether it's hockey or football, it doesn't matter. You can basketball, netball, you can learn everything. So I think once you think that you've learned it all, you're in a lot of trouble as a person and as a coach.
Brilliant. Two great points to finish it with. Thanks very much for coming on, and we'll hopefully speak to you again soon. Best of luck for the upcoming year for you both. So Michael, really lucky again to spend an hour with two really interesting coaches. What have you taken away from that hour?
Well, I've taken away so much, Simon. One of the big things that jumped out for me was around how both coaches learned and developed and improved their skill set. And a lot of that learning took place in situ, experiential learning in the coaching environment. And that was really interesting to hear of how both coaches dealt with times of uncertainty and times when the results maybe didn't go their way. And it really interesting to hear comments around learning from different sports, learning from coaches at different age grades, and just two guys who are really passionate and really committed to being better at what they do. And I think that struck a chord with me. In terms of your own takeaways, what did you take from the conversation we just had?
I had lots in various different areas, but the main one I think was about the transferable lessons and skill set between sport and business. I think we heard from both Arlene and Mark about the skills that they had taken from their roles, whether it be in banking or insurance, and brought that through, whether that was the ability to connect and communicate with people and engage people or negotiate or organize. Those were skill sets that they were taken from business into sport. But I also think that they both hinted around skill sets that they had from sport that they were taken into their business. And we know that around 80% of the coaches in Northern Ireland volunteer at least some of the time within their coaching. So most have other jobs. And I think sometimes we don't consider enough the skill sets that people are bringing from those other jobs into coaching. So that really interesting point to reflect upon after that.
Definitely, and those transferable skills certainly were discussed in depth. And I'd just like to thank everyone who's been listening to this episode. We have a number of different coaches lined up on the Curious Coaching podcast over the next few months. Coaches from a range of sports, coaches from a range of different backgrounds and coaching domains. And we're going to be bringing those conversations to you, and hopefully you'll be able to listen in and engage and potentially pick up some bits of interest or bits of information that will help you with your coaching, or maybe make you curious to find out a little bit more about something in relation to your own coaching. Have a good month, guys, until you hear us again, and we will see you soon.
Curious Coaching is brought to you by Sport Northern Ireland. We hope that this episode has sparked some curiosity for you and your coaching. The future belongs to the curious.